Okay. I would like to start this third lecture by making a few remarks about that strategy that I mentioned yesterday at the end of the second lecture. So first, let me recall so that's strategy. So produce a decomposition of the following form. So of the category of smooth lambda representations of G into summands indexed by inertial Langlands parameters. And with two requirements. First, compatibility with the local Langlands correspondence. So when lambda has characteristic 0. And so this decomposition should be defined without, independently from the existence of the local Langlands correspondence, but it is required that it should be compatible with it. And second requirement, for each parameter phi, there should be a reductive group G phi, so non necessarily connected, such that the summand corresponding to phi in G is equivalent to the summand for G phi corresponding to the trivial parameter. So here are some remarks about it. So first remark, the summands rep phi lambda G will not be indecomposable in general. It is not expected indecomposable. And if you require that this decomposition is compatible with the local Langlands correspondence, they can't be indecomposable because the how did I put this? Because the decomposition of the set of irreducible representations, even over C, the decomposition of irreducible representations into L packets is not compatible with Bernstein decomposition. So for classical groups, for instance, it is possible to find in a given L packet representations which do not have the same cuspidal support. Second remark, for the group GLN F, so first, when lambda has characteristic 0, the Bernstein decomposition is can be put on the form. Can be written this way. Say star. And when the same when the characteristic of lambda is non-zero, so L different from P, which follows from Vineras's mod L local Langlands correspondence. In the first remark? Yes? The summons will not be indecomposable, yes. That means that they may be decomposable, yes. Yes. May not be decomposable. They may be. I mean, for GLN, these summons will be indecomposable. For GLN, these summons will correspond to the Bernstein block. But for other groups, even for classical groups, these summons are not expected to be indecomposable. And third remark. So when G is a reductive group which is split over an unramified extension of F, Thomas Lannard obtained a decomposition not of the full category of smooth representation, but only on the level 0 part, so meaning that the objects are only the smooth representations of level 0. So a decomposition of this form, so a decomposition into summons, so rep phi G, where phi is so an inertial Langlands parameter. Since you only want the level 0 representation, there is an additional condition on the inertial Langlands parameter. It must be trivial on the wild high inertia subgroup PF of IF. And when in the case when the local Langlands correspondence is known to exist, so when G is an unramified classical group, and P is not 2. So there is a local Langlands correspondence, and Lannard verified that this decomposition is compatible with the local Langlands correspondence. So this is all what I wanted to say about this that strategy for decomposing the category. Now, are there any questions about this? If not, I will. Yes. The left-hand side. What is it? It is so the subcategory of level 0 smooth representations. So level 0, I did not give a precise definition. Level 0 a representation is said to have level 0 if it is generated by all its invariant vectors under the pro-p radical of the maximal paroric subgroups of G. If G is split over, so the Lannard's assumption is that G splits over an unramified extension. G itself need not be split. Any other question before I start the third part? Okay. So now I will talk about algebraic families of smooth representations. So this is a notion which has been introduced by David Helm. So the idea is that it should be an analog on the p-adic group side of the theory of Galois deformations. So deformations of Galois deformations of deformations of Galois representations. And so the idea is that it should allow one to import geometric methods into the theory of mod L smooth representations of p-adic reductive groups. So for this, one has to consider lambda representations for lambda not necessarily a field, but more generally a commutative Z, so Z 1 over P algebra. So this, the Z 1 over P algebra, it just means that P, there is the requirement that P must be invertible in lambda. So during the first two lectures, I assumed that lambda was an algebraically closed field of characteristic different from P, but you can verify that the basic definitions I gave, parabolic induction, parabolic restriction, for instance, are smooth, admissible. The basic definitions make sense, even if lambda is not a field. So first, before giving the definition of, before explaining what it means an algebraic family of representation, I would like to give a very basic example of what it means, what I mean by using geometric methods in the theory of representation. So consider the following problem. You want to prove that for all matrices A in Mn C, you want to prove that the determinant of the exponential of A is equal to the exponential of the trace of A. It is a very, very classical problem, and a classical way to prove it is to prove that first, prove that it is true when A is diagonalizable, and which is if A is diagonalizable, you diagonalize it, and for a diagonal matrix, or even for triangular matrix, the identity is clearly true. And then, second, prove that diagonalizable matrices form a dense subset in Mn of C, and since the identity you want to prove is given by a continuous function, if this continuous function is 0 on a dense subset, it will be 0 everywhere. So, in other words, this identity, you do not prove it independently for any matrix. You do not consider you don't fix an arbitrary A. You consider the problem in family, in some sense. So, roughly speaking, the idea of algebraic families of representations is similar. In order to prove some properties of mod L representations, you do not want to study one single specific representation alone, but you want to study it in families, and this. Roughly speaking, this argument by density will have an analog in the theory of representations. The analog of this argument by density will be to use the properties known for QL-bar representations in order to deduce properties for ZL-bar or for FL-bar representations. So for this, you need topological spaces which are a bit more elaborate than a Banach space such that MNC, but roughly speaking, basically, the idea is the same. So now I give the definition of an algebraic family. But you will see that it is not really a definition, it is just a change of viewpoint in the definition of a smooth representation. So let lambda be any commutative Z 1 over P algebra. So again, it just means a commutative ring in which P is invertible, nothing more. So a smooth lambda representation pi of G can be can be seen as an algebraic family of representations with coefficients in various fields. So a family indexed by the points in the spectrum of lambda. So more precisely, if you consider a point, so a prime ideal P of lambda, you may define the representation pi sub P as pi. So pi is a lambda representation, so it is given by a lambda module, and you tensor your lambda module by k. So k of p, the residue field at p. So k of p is the fraction field of A mod p. And if you, so it is a field, and if you prefer algebraically closed field, you can even take an algebraic closure. It is okay. So okay. So as I said, the idea is to deduce some properties of FL bar representation from known properties of QL bar representation, in some sense by density. So if one wants to do that, we need more specific rings, not only Z1 over P algebras, but rather ZL bar algebras. So more precisely, more specifically, we will consider ZL bar algebras. So in order to deduce properties for FL bar representations from properties of QL bar representations. I give you an example, a simple but significant example of an algebraic family of representations. Consider the following. So first, I will denote by M sub L the maximal ideal of ZL bar, and consider the following ZL bar algebra, so which turns out to be local. So I call it A. So, and by definition, it is the ring made of pairs AB in ZL bar times ZL bar, such that A is congruent to B mod the maximal ideal, ML. Okay, so what is the spectrum of this ring? So there are 4 prime ideals. The first one is eta. It is the trivial ideal, which is the trivial ideal. There are two other ones. P1, which is ML times 0 and P2, which is 0 times ml, which are two non-maximal prime ideals such that A mod pi is isomorphic to ZL bar, and there is a remaining ideal, which is the unique maximal ideal. Call it M or MA, which is the ideal generated by ML. And from a topological point of view, in the spectrum of A, eta is the point eta is dense. The point defined by the maximal ideal is closed. And if you consider the point pi, its closure is is made of 2 points, pi itself and the closed point M. Okay, so now consider two characters. So for I equals 1 or 2, let's consider, so let chi I be a character of G with values in ZL bar, a smooth character of G. And you want to you want to know whether it is possible to glue together, to put together K1 and K2 in the same family, that is in the same A representation. So there is so is there an A representation pi such that pi p1 is equal to k1 and pi p2 is equal to k2. So is it always possible to put k1 and k2 into the same A family, or is there a condition for this? So the answer is easy. It is possible if and only if K1 and K2 are congruent mod ML. So where does it come from? First, if so why is it a necessary condition? So if such pi exists, then K1 mod ML, you can write it. So I did not say that the residue field of MA is FL bar. Yes, MA. So K1 mod ML, you can write it as K1 tensor FL bar over ZL bar. So which is so K1. So you if you assume that such a pi exists, K1 you can write it pi specialized at P1 tensor ZL bar. You think of it as A over P1, and FL bar you think of it as A over MA. And so you see that this simplifies as okay, no, so this, yes, so this writes pi tensor over A over P1, tensor A over MA A mod P1, and this simplifies this is pi tensor over A over MA. And this does not depend on I anymore. So it is the same as K2 tensor FL bar. So it is the same as K2 mod mod ML. So if pi1 and pi2 are in the same family, they must be congruent mod L. And on the other hand, why is it a sufficient condition? It is very simple. So conversely, if K1 is congruent to K2 mod ML, then the A character chi defined by the following formula. So the first component is K1G, the second component is K2G. So note that it is well defined. K1G, K2G belongs to A precisely because we assumed that K1 and K2 are congruent, and you can check easily that this character chi has the required condition. So it satisfies, it is a family which satisfies chi P1 equals K1 and chi P2 equals K2. So you see that in by saying that two representations can be put into the same family, you can capture some arithmetical congruence properties. So now this notion of algebraic family introduced by Helm, where does it come from? The motivation of Helm. So Helm was motivated by proving a local Langlands correspondence in families. So what does it mean? Given lambda a ZL bar algebra and a lambda representation rho of the Galois group, the absolute Galois group of F. Or if you prefer, it can be the Weil group, WF. So rho from WF to GLN lambda. So a representation of rank n over lambda. Is there a lambda representation pi of GLN F such that for all points x in spec lambda, the specialization, so pi x is the image of rho x by the local Langlands correspondence. And so x, so okay, here it is not clear what I mean by the local Langlands correspondence because x, so the residue field at x may have characteristic 0 or may have characteristic L. So, but it is so the the initial question asked by Helm was so they were it was restricting to so any x so such that k of x has characteristic 0. It is enough to for this this question to make sense. So it was conjectured by Emerton and Helm that such local Lagrange correspondence in families exist. Rho x is the specialization of rho at x. Rho x is rho tensor k of x. K of x is and k of x is the fraction field of A mod x considered as a prime ideal of not A but lambda. It is just composing, yes, with the map from GLN lambda to GLN kx. Yes. So this gives you rho x. Yes. Okay, so now, so this was the initial motivation of Helm to introduce and to develop this theory of representations in families of representations. Now, if you consider the particular case of this algebra A, the one I have discussed before in this example, what would that mean? That such an LLC in families exists. If you so as I said, the fact that two representations here can be put into the same A family, it amounts to saying that these two representations are congruent, mod L. So saying that local Lagrange correspondence in families exist for this algebra A, it amounts to saying that the local Lagrange correspondence preserves congruences mod L. If you start with a row which puts together a row 1 and a row 2 which are congruent, and if you say that such a correspondence exists, so if you say that such a pi exists, it means that pi 1 and pi 2, the images of row 1 and row 2 by the local Lagrange correspondence, it means that pi 1 and pi 2 must also be congruent mod L. So you see that a very formal statement like this, it is not innocent, it says something very strong. It says that the existence of the local of a local Lagrange correspondence in family amounts to saying that the local Lagrange correspondence over QL bar preserves many algebraic or many congruence properties. So I gave you an example with this very simple ring A, but you can imagine that if you replace A by a much more complicated ring, you will get many more congruence or algebraic property, which will be preserved by the local Lagrange correspondence. Okay. So now I am going to state the main result, the main theorem by David Helm and Gil Moss, which implies the existence of the local Lagrange in families, and which compares the center of the category of lambda representations with the deformation rings of Galois representations. So for this, I need so this is due to David Helm and Gil Moss. So it is very recent, and so they compare the center of the category of lambda representations of G with rings of deformation of Galois representations. Okay, so I need to fix some more notation. So strictly speaking, they do not use ZL bar, but a slightly different ring, which is, so I will denote by WFL bar the ring of Witt vectors of FL bar. So it can be defined in an abstract way by a universal property, but there is a more concrete description of this ring. You may think of it as the L-adic completion, of the ring of integers of QL UR, which is the maximal unramified extension of QL. So it is not the same as ZL bar, because the ring of Witt vectors is principal. It is a principal local ring, and ZL bar is not principal because you have all possible roots of L. Okay, I will also denote by K an algebraic closure of the fraction field of the Witt vectors. So which has characteristic 0, of course. G will be GLN F. So this result by Helm and Moss is only concerned with GLN. And Z will be the center of the category of WFL bar representations of G. And IFL will be, so as yesterday, the maximal subgroup of IA whose pro-order is prime to L. And phi will be a fixed inertial Langlands parameter on IFL. So phi goes from IFL to the dual group of GLN, so GLN of the ring of Witt vectors. Okay. Okay, so according to to this inertial, no, it is not wild inertia. It is bigger than wild inertia. It is bigger because wild inertia is pro-p, and in IFL is not pro-p. Its pro-order its pro-order is divisible by any prime number different from L. So you just take, so it is in between. It is in between PF and IF. And it has the property that the index of IFL in IF is it is just a power of L. It is an infinite power of L and nothing else. And IFL itself has a pro-order prime to L. Okay, so to this parameter phi, you can associate two kinds of objects. So the first one I have already told you about. It is the block. It is the summand RUP WFL bar phi of GLNF of G. So strictly speaking, when I told you about these summands, I was assuming that lambda is a field. But it turns out that it makes sense to define these summands over WFL bar. And so more precisely, there is a primitive idempotent denoted E sub phi in the center, which defines defining this summand. So which means that if pi is irreducible, then pi belongs to the summand associated with phi, if and only if E phi acts non-trivially acts by one by the identity on phi. Okay, and I will write Z sub phi for the summand of the center cut out by this primitive idempotent. Okay, so on the other hand, Helm has associated to phi the following objects. First, excuse me, do you have other white chokes? They are only it is color chokes. Yes, all of them. A finitely generated reduced L torsion free and L-adically separated. I will explain. WFL bar algebra denoted R phi. So what does it mean? Okay, so finitely generated and reduced. So L torsion free, so there is no L torsion. There is no element x such that Lx. There is no non-zero element x such that Lx is 0. And L-adically separated, it means that if you take the intersection of all L to the I R phi, for any positive integer L, you get 0. So this is the first object, and the second one is and L-adically continuous. So it just means continuous for the L-adic topology. L-adically continuous. So there is an additional condition that I will not explain, which is a technical condition. So it is called a pseudo-frame representation, rho phi, from the Weil group WF to GLN of this ring R phi, such that if you restrict rho phi to IFL, it is isomorphic to the inertial parameter phi tensored by R phi. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I will not explain what pseudo frame means. It is a technical condition which comes from the theory of deformations of Galois representations, and so you should think of R phi as a universal deformation ring. And so, okay, so we have the following universal property. Satisfied by this pair R phi rho phi for any pair lambda rho with lambda finitely generated L-adically separated and WF L bar algebra, and rho an L-adically continuous pseudo-framed representation from WF to GLN of lambda, such that rho restricted to IFL is isomorphic to phi tensor lambda. So one has the following. There is a unique ring homomorphism X from R phi to lambda, such that rho is isomorphic to rho phi tensor lambda over R phi with respect to the morphism X. So again, it is a universal property which tells you that R phi is some kind of universal deformation ring of Galois representation. Okay, so now here is the main theorem of Hellman-Moss. So which compares two rings, which compares R phi with Z phi. So the tensor is over R phi, and the map between R phi and lambda is X. Okay, so first, there is a unique ring homomorphism. It is even a WFL bar homomorphism. A WFL bar algebra homomorphism. Call it lambda phi from Z phi to R phi with the following property. For all morphism X from R phi to K, recall that K is the fraction field, or its algebraic closure, the fraction field of the ring of vectors. So in particular, it has characteristic 0. So X is a point of characteristic 0 in the spectrum, such that for any such X, the character X composed with this map lambda phi. So it is a character of the center Z phi with values in K. So remember that Bernstein's center theory tells you that a character of the center can be thought of as a cuspidal support. So this character, it corresponds to a supercuspidal support, and so it should corresponds to the cuspidal support. So we are in characteristic 0, so there is no difference between cuspidal and supercuspidal. So to the supercuspidal support of the K-representation of GLNF associated by the local Lagrange correspondence over K to the Galois representation rho phi specialized at X, so meaning rho phi tensor K, and the tensor product is taken with respect to this morphism X. So this morphism compares two different objects. On the one side, you have the center, or a part of the center of the category of representations of GL and F, and here you have a universal deformation ring. And so you have such a map, and so it is even more, you can be even more precise. The second part, lambda, this morphism lambda phi is injective, and its image can be computed, can be described explicitly. So I will not describe it explicitly. It would require some more material, and in particular, it would require to explain what pseudo-frame means. But it can be done. And so by using this ring homomorphism lambda phi, it is possible to deduce the existence of the local Lagrange correspondence in families, which interpolates the local Lagrange correspondence in characteristic 0 in the sense that at any point in the spectrum of characteristic 0, the local Lagrange correspondence in family gives you back the classical L-adic local Lagrange correspondence. I'm done with representations in families. Do you have any question? If not, I will switch to the last part of the course. Yes? You must speak louder. What? Okay. Consider a Galois representation, say rho bar, over FL bar. So you have a group homomorphism like this, and if A is a local ring of residue field FL bar, and A deformation of rho bar is a representation rho sub A, or just rho, from WF to GLN A, such that if you apply the natural map from GLN A to GLN F bar, just by reducing mod the maximal ideal of your local ring, the map that you get here, it is rho bar. So a deformation is just a lift from FL bar to A of your initial representation rho bar. And you may consider the set of all A deformations. We call it def A. And the general theory of deformations tells you that this set of A deformations, it is if you consider it as a functor of A, it can be represented by a ring. So you have a functor from A def A from the category of commutative rings, from the category of local rings with residue field FL bar to the category of sets, and it can be it is representable by a ring denoted R rho bar, which means that def of A is equal to home R rho bar A. And this ring, which is uniquely determined, is called the universal deformation ring corresponding to rho bar. So somehow it tells you that the set, if you consider the set of deformations of a Galois representation, it is not only an abstract set. It is you may think of it as the A point of the spectrum of some ring. So it is not just a set, it has an additional algebraic or topological property. Any other question? Otherwise, I switch to the Jacques et Langlands part. Yes. Yes. Okay, so now I will talk about the congruence properties of the local Jacques et Langlands correspondence. So you have seen that if you consider the Langlands correspondence, quite a lot of things are known. So the congruence properties of the Langlands correspondence are known. They have been given by Vigneras. And even more than that, all these congruence properties have been are all encapsulated into a local Langlands correspondence in families. So the next step is to consider the case of the Jacques-Langlands correspondence. The congruence properties are known, but the Jacques-Langlands correspondence in families is still conjectural. Okay, so I promised you that I would explain what an inner form of GLN is. So it is now. I will denote by H the general linear group GLN_F. So F is fixed, N is some positive integer, and G will be an inner form of H. So what does it mean? It is a group of the form GLM of D, which is the group of invertible elements in the algebra made of matrices of size M with coefficients in some skew field D. So more precisely, D is a skew field, or more precisely, D is a finite dimensional division F algebra. Division algebra of center F. So a general theory of division algebras tells you that the dimension of such a division algebra over its center is always a square. It is a square, so I denote it D square. And there is an for G to be an inner form of H, there is an additional condition to relating NM and ND, which is MD. So MD equals N. So up to isomorphism. Up to isomorphism, there are n different inner forms of GLN. Okay, so on GLN, of course, you know that there is a determinant map. On an inner form, strictly speaking, there is no determinant. You cannot just copy the definition of the determinant. It doesn't work because D is not commutative. But there is a variant which is called the reduced norm. Reduced norm. So I will denote it by NRD from G to F times, which plays the role of the determinant. And in particular, when G is equal to H, the reduced norm is exactly the determinant. The Jacques-Langlands correspondence is concerned with not any, so it is first I have to say that it is a correspondence between some representations of G and some representations of H. So not any representations are concerned by the Jacques-Langlands correspondence, but only the square integrable ones. So I recall you the definition. An irreducible complex. So for the moment, I will go back to complex representations. For a while, forget about modular representation. So a complex irreducible representation pi v of G is said to be square integrable if first its central character omega pi is unitary. Unitary in the sense that, so it is a character of the center of the group, and it takes values in complex numbers. Unitary just means that it takes value in complex numbers of modulus 1. Unitary, and for all v in V and for all smooth linear form in the contragradient V star, the map which sends G to the modulus of psi of pi G V. So it is the complex modulus, of course. So this map is in L2 of G mod Z. So why G mod Z? A priori, it is a map defined over G, but it is defined over G mod Z because if you replace G by GZ, with Z is in the center, you will make appear the central character, but the modulus of the central character is 1, and so it disappears. It does not play a role. Okay. And here is a slight generalization of square integrable, which is more convenient when stating the Jacques-Langlands correspondence. Pi v is said to be essentially square integrable. I will abbreviate it to ESI. If some twist of pi by an unramified character is square integrable. So it does not seem to be, a priori, it does not seem to be very interesting to enlarge square integrable to essentially square integrable, but actually it is more convenient, it is more, a little bit more flexible. Okay. Still have 10 minutes, very good. So this is an analytic. This definition of square integrable representation, it relies a lot on the topological structure of C. So it is a definition from the harmonic analysis point of view, but it turns out that there is a more algebraic characterization of the essentially square integrable representation. So there is the following classification, which is due to Bernstein for H and Tadic for other inner forms. So one of the following classification of essentially square integrable representations. So first part, let R be any positive integer and rho any cuspidal. So I consider complex representations. So cuspidal, again, it's the same as supercuspidal. There is no difference. Cuspidal, complex, irreducible representation of GL K of D for some positive K. Then there is a unique positive integer S of rho, so which only depends on rho, and such that the following parabolic induction is reducible, such that the parabolic induction of, where is it? So I will do not specify so yeah, let's call, let's denote by P the parabolic subgroup, and you induce to GL KR of D, and what do you induce? You induce rho tensor rho twisted by nu to the S of rho. So I did not say what nu is. Nu is, okay, first I finished this first and then I define nu. And so you put R factors. The last one is rho twisted by nu to the S of rho times r minus 1. So such that this is reducible, where nu is the character of GLKRD. So with the complex character defined by the absolute value of the reduced norm of G. So the absolute value is the absolute value of F. So the values of the absolute value of F are integer powers of Q, which can be considered as complex numbers. Okay. And then this parabolically induced representation has a unique irreducible quotient, which I will denote by L of rho, comma r. And this quotient is essentially square integrable. So this is the first part of the theorem. And the second part tells you that by doing this, you get all essentially square integrable representation. So conversely, if pi is essentially square integrable of GLMD, then there exists a unique R dividing M and a unique cuspidal rho of GL M over R of D, such that pi is isomorphic to L of rho R. You have a full classification. A couple of remarks. If you are in the case where D is commutative, so if D is F, so if G is just GLN F, then this invariant S of rho, you do not see it because it is always equal to 1. So the fact that, yes? When K is equal to 1 and R is equal to 1, yes? Yes, you just have rho. Yes. So more generally, for any rho, if R is equal to 1, L of rho 1 is rho. Rho is irreducible. Okay. Yes, you're right. Okay, so when R is 1, yes, I need to add this to the definition. Okay. Yes, good point. Yes, it is. Yes, it is because I did not state properly that. But you're right. Yes, when R is 1. Suppose. Yes. So this is always true, even if R is 1. Thank you. And second, so if D is commutative, S of rho is always 1. And in general, it is not always 1, but it divides D, and it is prime to M. Okay, so notation. I will denote by D of GC the set of isomorphism classes of essentially square integrable representations of complex representations of G. And we will see tomorrow that the Jacques-Langlands correspondence compares DGC with DHC. But this will be for tomorrow. So tomorrow, so I will finish my presentation of the Jacques-Langlands correspondence, and then I will study its congruence properties. Thank you. For which group? Yes. We can define the determinant, yes.
The reduced norm is an analog for the determinant for GLMD. Would there be any relation between the reduced norm and the determinant over there? I mean, can we associate elements from GLNF to GLMD such that the determinant of those would be associated with the reduced norm of these elements?
Say it again.
Since we are saying that the
yes, the last part of your question. Say it again.
So, given any element of GLNF, can we associate it with an element of GLMD such that the determinant of the element of GLNF would be associated with the reduced norm of the element of GLND?
So you start with an element of GLNF which has some determinant, and you want to construct an element of GLMD whose reduced norm will be equal to the determinant.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's a relation between the reduced norm over there and the determinant over here. I mean, can they be actually related in such a manner?
I give you the definition of the reduced norm, and you will see what happens. So you consider the matrix algebra MM of D, and you consider an extension of F large enough of degree D. If you tensor by L, you will split the algebra. It will be isomorphic to MMD of L. And here L is commutative. So on this side, it makes sense to consider the determinant. So you consider the determinant, which takes value in L. And if you apply it to this subalgebra, what will happen is that this determinant, say that L, it will take value in F, and this is the reduced norm. And you can prove that it does not depend on the choice of L. So actually, the reduced norm is some kind of determinant.